I was almost retired within 1 year of retirement before I was able, and I was in my I was 40 years old. And the younger veteran, which is anywhere from 20 to 30, and they're raising a family, it's very hard. So we need something to help our post stay in business.
Last year there were 2 bills in. There was a statewide bill, but in addition to those, there was a local bill for Harford County. As you go up the eastern shore, Cecil County is the top of the shore. They have slot machines in the fraternals and the veterans. Harford County tried and it didn't get out of committee. Worcester County is interesting because they've switched position down there. For years, the Worcester County government, and particularly the Ocean City City Council, are death on gambling. For example, the Ocean City City Council took the Keno law to the Court of Appeals, but they've switched their position now, and the bill passed the House very early in the session, went over the Senate and came out, and it died on the last night of the session. I always say it's like Halloween. The ghosts and the goblins are around, and I see the heavy hand of Ocean Downs. Now, Ocean Downs got the first, they were the first one in the state to have slot machines. They've got they've been improved. They're ready to go. So, and the argument that we have to make is that our veterans posts are not competing with the public slots. No. We are membership only. We're not going to invite the people of Bowie in to play slot machines. No. We're going to invite our members to play, and members and their guests. It's a very restricted. So whatever they decide to do in the county, if they decide to do anything, we're not rivals, you know.
Right.
But and this is a bill again could, as Senator Peters said, could bring in some money to the state and do wonders for us. I mean, veterans posts, we're old and gray, and we aren't recruiting young members like we ought to. And there's a physical limit to what some of the, putting the quarters in the slot machine for some, that's the last physical challenge they can meet. But it would do wonders for us and for the community.
One thing I can say, we can thank Senator Peters for his helping save our Nevada clubs, the pull tab tickets, because the county, Prince George's County, got very, very stickly about taking all these out, and Doug was very instrumental in getting that waived, and we were able to keep our Nevada clubs and our bar bingos going, and this has really helped us, and we really thank you for that.
We're very grateful to have a veteran representing us in all of that. I think we can speak for all the four, regardless of politics or ideology, to have somebody who knows what veterans posts are all about and what veterans are all about. When I was in the legislature, all 4 of us from this district were veterans. Now we have Senator Peters.
Right.
I think Marvin Holmes was in the Army.
He was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that, Judge. It is important, I think, to have that post background, because when we were talking about pull tab tickets and instant bingo tickets, people's eyes just were rolling around. I have no idea what's involved. But what happened is that Senator Miller put a bill in to get rid of machines that were really slot machines in not the veterans post, but in other bars. And the way they defined it was that you would put your money in and you would get an instant result on the screen, and you would either get a winner or a loser. The pull tabs were different. You buy the pull tab, you pull it, and you get a winner or a loser. So it's not basically a slot machine.
No.
So we had to go through that through the amendments in the bill, and it really helped being a member of the post and understanding the mechanics. And I know I leaned on some of you guys for some of that language, but it's in the bill, it's crystal clear, and certainly don't want to take away anything that's happening right now at the post.
And one thing also is to say, being commander of the DAV here in Bowie, all it is a dispensing machine, and it keeps track of how many tickets go through, and we pay tax. State tax on that. So we're not exempt from that portion of the tax, even though we're a nonprofit and we don't pay federal taxes. We still pay state sales tax, and we still pay any of the revenues, where there's a portion part of the income that we do pay the state. So it's a win-win situation for both.
Right.
They had a special bill last year, grandfathered Calvert County, and if you go down to Chesapeake Beach and you see the rod and reel, it's like you're in Las Vegas, but it's not a slot machine.
Right.
Well, we're very fortunate, obviously, to have Senator Peters as our representative here in the county, and we'll have to bring in some of our delegates and give them the same grilling we're giving him right now. Also, Senator Peters, you were on the task force to study state assistance to veterans back in 2008.
Right.
And there was a report put out on that. Could you tell us a little bit about some of the recommendations and how they were moving along, especially in light of some of the recommendations included more interaction with the federal government to improve coordination and sharing of information about veterans, you know, the opting in or opting out of the DD-214, which I always thought was a great idea to.
Right. As you know, the DD-214 is the key document for the veteran who's retiring. One of the problems is we have all these different collection areas for the DD-214. We have the posts, which have service officers, which have DD-214s on file. Most of the time they're used particularly in final honors, where you bring the DD-214 to the funeral home, you get a flag, you present that, and, you know,
And a gravesite.
a gravesite, right. And of course to qualify a member for the different veterans organizations. We found out that the DD-214 was at the federal level submitted, at the state level submitted. We found out that no one was talking to each other. Different DD-214s were copied in different places, and when a widow would look for the 214, you know, they don't know where to go. You know, they just want to find the 214. So one of the things that we made a commitment to was to try to come up with a universal database to you know, find the 214s and make sure that everyone was covered and you could go to a particular area and get it. It's not going to be inexpensive, but it's something I think that's critical because that's your document. The other issue with the 214 was the opt-in and opt-out. You know, we could, right now, I mean, you have to check the box versus just allowing it to happen, you know, and people who get discharged, they're not thinking about whether to check a box or not. And we lose a lot of the 214s because of that. So that was a change that we made as well.
Well, I think that's pretty important because I remember after my first enlistment, you know, like most of the guys, you're young and the first thing you want to do is get off the base as fast as possible. And you ignored, you know, getting a physical checkup before you go and so forth. The whole idea was give me my final pay and I'm out of here. And I think the idea that you'd have to opt out rather than being, as opposed to the way it is now where you have to opt in, would be much better, and get them into the VA system right away so that, you know, we're not struggling to try and find some of this, these papers.
One thing though is that you can go and get your DD-214 registered down at the courthouse. And they recently passed a law that this is exempt from the Freedom of Information Act. So anybody just can't go and get that information from your DD-214.
And if you have a lot of people, for example, have fires in their home and so forth, I used to be a lawyer before I was a judge, but everybody should have a will. And for like $1, you know, a very small, probably $2 now, you can register your will, and it's a fireproof safe in the Register of Wills office in the courthouse.
Right.
And this is, you know, in fact, I say this to all you veterans out there, you ought to have, everybody ought to have the person who's going to be the personal representative in your will ought to have your 214, spouse ought to have one, you know. So in other words, in this very critical time when a veteran dies, that's what you want to bring that to the undertaker, and he'll do everything for you after that.
Or having a nice safety deposit box that you can go to, have a real fast, because you don't have a lot of time. And without a DD-214, the funeral director's hands are tied, and so is the director of the Maryland Veteran Cemetery. Without a DD-214, they have to have that documentation in order to follow through and getting a flag and getting your, I think it's $255 from the VA and headstone and whatever it is. And you get
a grave liner too.
And a grave liner, right? That's the main key source. So for those who are listening, get your DD-214. And get it registered down in Prince George's County Courthouse. And as Jerry said, let your people know where you want to be buried and such like that. And even though you may be in your 60s, 70s, or even 80s, you never know when you're not going to eat breakfast or tomorrow or eat supper tomorrow night. It's a very unknown factor.
I was in the legislature when the Graveliner bill passed, and the delegate who